Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to episode 237 of the Reformed Gamers, the only podcast that is more cozy than Hogsmeade. I'm one of your hosts, Logan.
And I am his co-host, Micah.
Micah, I'm a little, we talked about traumatic stories in the pre-show, and I'm a little traumatized at this point by Hogwarts Legacy, not for any reason that people may think, right? I hate spiders. I'm killing a lot of spiders. It's no big deal. But the thing that traumatizes me the most is every single flipping time I get anywhere close to Hogsmeade, my character's like, seems like all roads lead to Hogsmeade. Nothing more cozy than Hogsmeade. And whatever other kind of goofy stuff he says is like, dude, shut up. I get it. We're in Hogsmeade.
I literally have that written down in my notes about Hogwarts Legacy when we talk about it, is how many times they overuse the phrases that they have recorded. And it's almost comical because, partially because of how big the game is, but yeah,
Yes.
like it's real good.
Yep.
It's real good how they do it.
It
Real
is.
good. It's so good it's bad.
Right.
Or so bad it's
100%.
good, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those situations where, like, we talk about characters ruining puzzles in games now because they're always talking like, well, if I just get up over there using this, like they ruin the puzzles before you even start really thinking about it, right?
Yeah, it's not as egregious as some games, but yeah, they do a little bit of that as
Right.
well.
And so in this situation, I'm like, I kind of want my character to shut up and not talk as much when we're around Hogsmeade. But at the same time, I'm so used to it at this point. I'm like making fun of it and just kind of like mimicking them.
Yep.
And it's just like, I don't know if I really want it to go away at this point. I don't know if that's Stockholm syndrome or what that is, but
Yep. I always talk about Rocket League around here. That's kind of my mainstay game. And me and my crew who've been playing Rocket League, they've also been playing Hogwarts. And anytime like we sort of come up on the ball and the ball is like ours, like we're gonna get it, we're always like, you're mine now, Demi guys. So anytime we come up on the ball, mine now, Demi guys.
I love it. I love it. Dude, this game, we'll get into it a little bit later, but that is so funny. I just love the memes that have come out of it and just,
Yeah.
it's good times. And then you get by the fast travel lady. She's like, off on another adventure, are we? And then I saw this TikTok where this guy, anytime he plays it, he dresses up as Snape and he like streams it and does the voice and everything. And there was a clip where that person's like that. I can't remember the professor's name, but she said, off on another adventure. When he's like, obviously, like Snape does. And it's just every time she says it now, that's what I just repeat back, like without skipping a beat. And it's just,
it's the Flu Flame lady. That's what it is. It's always commenting every time you fast travel, every time. So yeah, they definitely are a little obnoxious with some of those phrases they repeat, but classic.
It's so good.
Classic open world tropes and problems there.
Love it. You gotta love it. The other things you gotta love, though, before we get into the show proper, is a couple things that we've got going on here at TRG. In case you're missing out, let's just say, by chance, you're listening to the podcast, you heard me talk about Marvel Snap enough, you're like, man, I like Marvel Snap. I started playing it. I want more content. We have a Marvel Snap podcast called the Snap Chatter Podcast, a Marvel Snap podcast, over on YouTube, public feeds, all that jazz. Links to it's in your show notes. Me and Nate from the Backlog Breakdown have been recording that. As of the time that this episode is being recorded, there's 3 episodes out. By the time this episode releases on public feeds, there will be 4. Episode 4 is a little outdated now that they've changed a few things, but it's still worth listening to. I think we made some good points about the game's economy. Other things that we've got going on as well. Talk TRG is our $5 reward for subscribing over on Patreon. That is more of a discussional conversation podcast sort of thing. Discussional isn't a word, but I just made it up. But it's kind of a more conversational podcast. We've got 2 episodes of that out right now. I'm working on March's episode, and we'll be getting that out here in the coming weeks. First episode was me and my wife talking about the drama surrounding Hogwarts Legacy, which is a game we will be talking about here in just a second. And then the second episode, I brought Aaron White on, a fellow patron of the show, and also a fellow podcaster. He does a podcast called Feelin' Film, and I brought him on to talk about his time at Sundance, different movies, just the movie form of entertainment itself, what's so good about it, the state of the MCU and the DCU and that sort of thing. So if you support the show with a $5 tier, make sure you're getting those rewards as well. As always, you can support us over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers. For as low as $1 a month, you get all the episodes early and uncut. And all that extra stuff. We basically get to keep doing what we do here at the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. So that being said, let's get into the show proper. A little bit of what we've been playing. And Micah, it seems like both of us are playing the same game, man. Hogwarts
Yeah.
Legacy.
Yeah, of course. Sort of echoing, what I said last week. I started it. I got a good chunk sort of taken care of when I checked in last episode, but I'm now finished with the game as far as
Okay.
I've rolled credits, quote unquote. I've got all the main quests done. I've got all the side quests done. It's
Mhm.
just sort of trophy and collectible cleanup now, which I am
Nice.
going to go for. I'll go ahead and just start right there at the top. Collectibles. There are too many collectibles in this game. It
Yep.
suffers from that pretty common open world problem.
Mhm.
And there's it's just so many, man. There's 95 something Merlin trials. Like, that's too
Yeah.
many, especially
And
when. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say the Merlin trials aren't even fun. I really hate the only reason I'm doing them is to unlock more gear slots. That's the only reason I'm doing
Yeah,
them.
yeah, that is a great initiative, but I think you can get that done at around 40 Merlin trials, so you still have to get a ton
Oh
more, and
man.
just there's not enough variety in them, and
Yeah.
they're okay, but yeah, they're like, so there's lots of those. There's the demiguise statues, there's, landing platforms for your broom, ancient magic hotspots. There's so many categories of collectibles, and it just
Yeah.
seems like it's a checklist kind of thing. Um, for someone who's a trophy hunter, that is a bit of a turn off, and that's going to add like
Mhm.
another like 10 hours to the game.
Yeah. It
But
almost makes me wish we had the Riddler trophies from Arkham Knight again, because there was only like 200 some odd things of those, and I'm like, I
yeah,
kind of miss those at this point because there was way less of them.
yeah, but with that complaint aside, man, I still love the game. This is
Yeah.
like it. It's like a. I was telling a buddy, it's like the best, or like a super solid like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
To me, it gets all the basics right. The controls feel good. The combat is nice.
Hmm.
The story and I was about to say voice acting. The voice actors for the lead roles are good. Kind of all the NPCs are kind of hit and miss, like we mentioned
Yeah.
last episode. But
Hmm.
the overall stories and the side quests, there are sort of three main side quest lines with Sebastian, Poppy, and Natty,
Yeah.
and those are all excellent. Shout
Yeah.
out to the Sebastian quest line especially. That is really cool where all that goes. Um, so good writing. I'm enjoying all the quests and stuff. Like we already mentioned, they overuse all the phrases and stuff when you come in, like somehow all roads lead to Hogsmeade, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, I'm checking out my notes here. Yeah, it's a pretty standard open world game. It's just they get everything pretty much right. Like I said, the
Hmm.
controls, the gameplay, the loops that you go through, the music is great. And the other thing that I like about it that I think really kind of solidifies it for me and why I kept going is that it keeps peeling back layers like an onion. And I'm just like, I'm in Hogwarts Castle still, and I'm like, oh, there's a new room. What is this?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is a cool room, or this is a, you're going down a bit of a cave system or whatever the heck, and
Yeah.
you discover a nice piece of loot, or you get a nice piece of lore that's really, like, truly, it's kind of helps flesh out the world and everything. So
Hmm.
that was the thing that I kept being surprised by as I got 35, 40 hours in and really
Yeah.
deep. I'm like, man, I still couldn't right now. And about 50 hours in, I've beaten the game. I can't get around Hogwarts Castle without a map. Like, it's still
Yeah.
so big.
Yeah. I'm the
I
same
don't
way.
know it. It's just massive. So
Yeah.
the amount of secrets in it, I still haven't discovered everything.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, in that regard, that sense of discovery and, just kind of that Harry Potter magic that is very wonderful, that is washing
Hmm.
over me really well, and that's kind of pulling me through, and yeah, I'm liking it a lot. So yeah, kind of thumbs up from me for Hogwarts Legacy. I don't think this will be in my game of the year kind of top 3, 4, 5 at the end, but this is a
Hmm.
very good game, easily recommended for anyone who's a Harry Potter
Yeah.
fan, like
Yeah.
no brainer.
Yeah.
And a very, very good game for those that just like the genre. So yeah.
Yeah. I think what has impressed me so much about the game is that it's very obvious that the people that worked on this game have clearly read the books very thoroughly, and they've watched the movies, they've consumed all the content. I've been watching several videos mainly because my wife has been watching them, and so I'm sitting there, along for the ride, because she's a big Harry Potter fan, and we're watching this video talking about some of the locations both outside of Hogwarts and inside of Hogwarts, and just they were reading passages from the various books while being in those areas and tilting or rotating the camera around. And it's like they got these areas like just step for step exactly how it was in the books. And it's wild, man. I gotta say, like, hats off to this team for just not only building Hogwarts and the area surrounding it, but getting it so perfect to the source material. I mean, normally you see people like kind of cut corners or things like that, but no, you can really tell that they took their time. They even have the for those of you that have seen, Chamber of Secrets, they even have the bathroom in there that leads to the Chamber of Secrets. You can't do anything with it, but like I think you pick up one of the guide pages and it mentions something about like hearing a sound around there. And it's just, man, like I said, Harry Potter fans obviously are probably playing this game. But even just someone like me who, I've read all up through book 4. I've seen all the movies. Even I'm like going around like, man, I'm appreciating a lot of this because I remember a lot of this stuff from the books. And just, yeah, the combat's great. I was talking, I think, earlier in the show at the top or whatever, but like how I hate spiders, and of course there's like spider dens and all stuff, so you go fight them.
Yeah.
But pretty much the moment when I use one of my ancient magic abilities to pull a spider towards me, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Don't pull the spider towards me. But it kept shrinking as it got smaller, and then you step on it. I'm like, dude, I freaking love this game. This is
Mhm.
awesome. And
Yeah.
then I unlocked. I don't want to spoil it because it's so yeah, it's just it's cool getting to see the different magical creatures and having your own like I don't even know what to call this. It just makes me think of like Viva Pinata a little bit. How you'd have like your own zones where you're taking care of the creatures and all that, and you're
Mhm.
catching them, saving them from poachers, and putting them in there and taking care of them. I'm like, this game's got a lot of things going for it, and I'm enjoying the whole thing. I'm only 22 hours in. Um, for those that have played the game, I just met Poppy and we went to a certain fight club sort of thing. I'm not going to say anything beyond that because I don't want to spoil it, but I will say, I'll echo what Micah said. That Sebastian quest line, boy, that is everything that piques us or piques our interest with this show in asking questions, dealing with conflict, dealing with philosophy and stuff like that. It is
Are you done with that quest line, Logan?
no, but I did watch my wife finish it, and so
Okay.
I'm like, bro, this is wild.
Real quick, I'll interject and hand it back to you. The Sebastian side quest line best encapsulates, in my opinion, like the RPG nature of the game. And a lot of these open world games try to be RPGs and end up being kind of like RPG light.
Hmm.
As far as like dialogue choices and that kind of thing. I feel like the dialogue choices in this game aren't really super they don't matter a whole lot, but
Right.
in this quest line they totally do. And there's like epic choices you have to make, I feel like,
Yeah.
that are really, really good. And I'm like, whoa, okay, let me think about this for a second.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I came across my first one the other night, and I had to pause the game and sit there for like several minutes. Like, okay, what do I do here? Because I don't want to do this, but I don't want to do this either. But we got to do this, and so
Yeah.
it's really really good.
Hmm.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is dope. My favorite thing though is actually customizing my character. Transmogging the different things in and out. Making my
Heck
character
yeah.
look like me, but a fancy regal me. I got the Mike. I don't know if you unlocked the. Have you gotten all the like hidden coin things to unlock that chest in your common room?
Hmm. Yep.
So you got that sweet robe for your
For the
character.
house. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
lights up when you use the spells and stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
So mine's got the like fur mane thing around the collar because I'm Gryffindor, and man, I'm digging it. My character
Yeah,
looks
there's
pretty
so
dope.
many. After I beat the game, I decked out in full Captain Quidditch team gear, with like the goggles and the
Yes.
little helmet thing. Looks like an old timey football helmet with just like leather and no
Yes.
face mask. It's super, like, yeah, I love
So good.
all the costumes you can put on. That's one of the best parts of the game, is the different
It's so
costumes you
good.
have.
It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, I'm sure we'll be gushing a lot about Hogwarts Legacy in future episodes, and I'm sure we'll do an episode on it as well. Um, But yeah, Micah, let me kick it back to you, man. Let's talk about TRG kids here.
Yeah, TRG kids. My kids have been getting into. Well, I will say briefly, Layla, my oldest, is still playing Hogwarts Legacy. She's probably right around where you are, about 22 hours or so.
Mm-hmm.
Logan, she's really enjoying it as well. So just more thumbs up from her
Right
about
on.
Hogwarts as well. But the game I'm about to mention is an evergreen in our house. They discovered it back in the day and have really and never put it down. Really, my oldest Layla discovered it, and it's just been a part of our house ever since. I played it with her some, but I'm talking about Minecraft. Of course, it's almost inescapable if you're talking about kids,
Yeah.
and it truly is. I didn't have I didn't have much appreciation for Minecraft before I had kids. It was never a game that interested me. It always seemed like it was over there and people over there were enjoying it.
Yeah. It's almost a little too
And
weird.
yeah, and so when my kids started playing it, I played with them some, and I did some creative stuff, and you can do either creative or survival.
Mm-hmm.
And that was low key and chill, and just like we're making neighborhoods and stuff like that, and like houses and churches and just random buildings and roller coasters and just having a good time. And it's like, and I realized, and I knew this already, but it's like, oh, this is Legos. This is video game
Yeah.
Legos, is what
Yeah.
this is. And not that I didn't know that, but it just kind of clicked a little bit more for me. And
Mm-hmm.
the great thing about Minecraft is that they all three get on there, split screen, and they're all three playing at the same time, and they're basically just like doing pretend. Like they're in their houses that they make, and they'll go to a
Mm-hmm.
mountain and they'll carve out the side of the mountain and make it a house, and they'll do like pretend in the house, and
Yeah.
that's how they play Minecraft, and it's just really neat and kind of wholesome watching them interact that way.
Mm-hmm.
So Minecraft gets really kind of my highest TRG kids recommendation, and from the kids, 3 out of 3 from all of them, obviously. It's simply a game you kind of need to own if you have kids. So yeah, of course,
Yeah.
Minecraft.
It's funny that you brought that up because even today I was talking with some of my students, and of course, I teach juniors and seniors, and even they were going on about Minecraft and playing that recently. I'm like, what the heck is Minecraft having one of those moments where it's like resurging kind of back in the psyche of like every gamer's mind right
I don't
now?
think
And
it ever left. I don't think it ever
yeah,
left. It's just not our cup of tea. It's just not in our purview.
yeah, that's true. Not to say that I don't like Minecraft because when me and my wife got into Minecraft, we fell hard down that rabbit hole, man. But man, yeah, that's a game that I always think about going back to just to kind of mess around. But like every time I do now, it's like I don't have any objectives, and so I don't really get hooked like I used to.
Yeah, yeah. It really. I mean, I'm sure there are some objective based things. There's lots of stuff you can do in Minecraft, but to me, it is
Hmm.
just that open sandbox. It's like, what would you like
Yeah,
to do?
yeah.
So yeah.
I was always a fan of making a giant sand, like a literal sandcastle rising out of the ocean and doing
Oh,
all
that's
that. So
cool. Yeah, I
yeah, and
like that.
then like kind of using the water to like travel through the different levels of the castle and stuff. And so that was
Yeah.
always a fun time. And then whenever me and my wife would play, I would like to rig her door that when she steps on a certain play, it opens up this other door that brings lava down into her house and then hits the dynamite and blows up her house. She doesn't play with me anymore in Minecraft for that reason. But that's what I like to do. That's what I like to do. I like to troll my wife.
That's super good.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of
Oh man,
fun.
I like that.
That's what I love about Minecraft. You can get pretty creative with some of that stuff and really just troll people. But anyway,
100%. Yeah.
it's a good time. Good time. That's a
Oh man.
great show. I might play that this weekend now. Now that I was brought up. Uh, Aside from Hogwarts Legacy, I did pick up Hi-Fi Rush. While I was
Yes.
on Steam, and I gotta say, I get why this game is reviewed as highly as it is.
All right.
Not only does it look good, like the animation, the switch between like actual hand drawn animation and the game itself is like pretty seamless. It's really clever how they do that a couple times. But man, I have to say, when I heard this game was made by the same people that did Evil Within, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to be any good. But this feels like, I mean, if you like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, um, Vanquish, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, those sort of things, it feels similar enough to those games, but it has like a music component to it that when you attack on beat with the music, it gets more powered up, and you can do different moves based off that. And of course, you're playing through the game, leveling up your moves and combos, Devil May Cry style, using your points. But just the fact that everything is on beat to the music is just wild to me.
So, a question, and I've not watched gameplay. I kind of stopped doing that in general. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't watch gameplay that much anymore. Like, if I
Mm-hmm.
kind of know I want to play a game, I'm like, all right, I'm good, and then check out. So I haven't watched a whole lot. Are
Yeah.
the songs in this game, are they licensed songs, like songs you would know, or is it original stuff?
So some of them are licensed. I remember seeing like a Nine Inch Nails song come up at one point, and I'm like, wait, what? And then there's some that like it's clearly made by the studio. They had a group of people come together and make the music for it. And so some of it you may recognize. Other stuff you're definitely not going to recognize because it's made for the game. But it's pretty cool. And I think what you can clearly tell, it's kind of like when you play Guitar Hero. You can tell that like the people that made this game really love music. And when you play this game, you can tell people that made this really love music. And there's these like little details. I don't know if they did this intentionally, but every time you go into a boss battle and the music captions come up, they look exactly like they did on the old MTV music videos. And so I'm like,
Right.
dude,
Yeah.
that is such a cool little detail that they snuck in that I'm sure a lot of people are going to miss. But for, kids of the 90s like me, I'm like, dude, that's a cool little touch. That like really gets me hyped. And the humor, oh my gosh, dude, the humor is awesome in this game. It's so on point.
That's
Yeah.
super good. It's super encouraging to hear. Not that I was really, had any doubts. Every person that I've
Hmm.
heard talk about this game has only said glowing things about it. But that's great to hear you
Yeah.
say all that stuff. Man, that I love rhythm games. So I'm really itching.
Hmm.
I mentioned it on the episode where this was shadow dropped and it was news. And like this game is giving me the itch to want to get a
Yeah.
Series X.
Yeah.
But yeah, not quite yet.
Yeah, man. Well, just saying, it's whenever you do get around to it, it's a very good time. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I'm trying to think. There was something else I was going to say about it, and now I can't quite remember what it was. Oh, here it is. Because I know for people, especially if you're like me, it's hard to kind of like do things in beat with stuff. That's why, like, I'll tell you this story. When I'm at church and the worship leader starts clapping, I'm like, no, 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 no. If I start clapping, I can't sing. If I clap, I can't sing. I can't do both at the same time, man. You got to have me do one or the other.
Oh
Um,
man.
and so when it comes to this game, it kind of challenges that, but you can press the back button or whatever that button would be on the Xbox controller, the one with the two screens, and it'll bring up this like metronome sort of thing that has these like closing half circles going into the beat of there, so it kind of helps you visualize that. And
Okay.
so it's just a cool thing. Even if you don't um, time your attacks with the beat, you can still do some pretty good damage and still make sounds that like when the guitar hits a character, it still sounds like it goes part with the song. It may not be on beat, but it still sounds good. So
Yeah.
it's really good. Even if you're someone who may be looking at the game and worried like, man, I'm not really musically inclined, I can't really clap on beat or anything, don't let that stop you. This is a really good time. And so yeah, man, I highly recommend Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick about I was about to interject with about the clapping in church. Man, nothing against clapping in church. I mean, knock yourself out. But I tend to see that whether it's that like in church or like just at like concerts and shows and stuff where like the band gets people to start clapping, the
Hmm.
crowd has no rhythm. They can't
No,
ever
no.
keep actual like
Yeah,
metronomic beat with
yeah.
whoever's on stage.
There's always that one person, at least at church, there's always that one person who's like off beat, and then it gets everybody else off beat, and it's like, okay, we're done. Like,
Hmm.
why did we do this? Why why
Yeah.
did we do this? Y'all know what we're talking about. Don't act like you don't. But
100%.
yeah, man, Hi-Fi Rush, great stuff. I'm gonna reiterate this again. I'm probably gonna be saying this a lot this year, dude. What a time to be alive. To be into gaming. There's so many good games, and it's just March. Like,
Yeah.
we're finally in the month though, where Trails to Azure comes out, so be on the lookout for that. That's a good time. Um, but speaking of games, man, Micah, let's get into the show like we do with our news roundup. Man, we've got.
Dude.
So I'm just gonna let people listening to the show know we've got a lot to talk about. We're gonna recap a lot of stuff about State of Play, but we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about Final Fantasy XVI because some previews dropped, and Oh my goodness! Plus, we got a ton of write-ins. Shout out to our patrons.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to cover, Logan. And quick shout out to Alex Castellanos, dear patron. 2 episodes ago, we were covering the Xbox Developer Direct and like going
Mm-hmm.
down, all the games and stuff. And in that episode, he had a question. Alex had a question right in, and he said, "When do you think Nintendo's going to do a direct, and when do you think Sony's going to do a state of play?" And literally, the following 2 episodes, we had a direct, and now we have a Sony state of play to report on.
I feel like Alex is a
However,
prophet. He's calling these things into being. Or existence,
Alex, between that and him like mopping floor with us in the fantasy leagues all the time, he might just have a little gift there of prophecy. But
he's
anyway,
got an uncle that works at Nintendo. Is really what it is.
That's what
and
it is.
PlayStation.
Unfortunately for this state of play, this isn't the one that I think PlayStation fans really wanted. This was a much more kind of low key state of play, and I'm going to hit the highlights real quick, and we'll kind of come back up to the top. Of course, we got our sort of long deep dive 15-minute look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is still slated for March 26th. We got a release date for Baldur's Gate 3, or was it an announcement trailer or a release date trailer?
Do you mean May 26th for Suicide Squad?
What did I say?
March.
Oh yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, May 26th. That's one of those. I'm not even going to think about it as it slips out.
March.
Thank you for the correction. May 26th. Excuse me. We got a trailer for Baldur's Gate 3, which is coming out August 31st. We got a new trailer for Resident Evil 4. It's got it announced the new Mercenaries mode. It's going to come back. That's of course coming out March 24th here in a few weeks.
Can't wait.
We saw that. I don't know if it's pronounced Chia or Tichia. But this sort of islander game with this cute little girl looks a lot like Chill Breath of the Wild. That is launching day and date on PlayStation Plus Extra on March 21st. So that's kind of a neat extra bonus. And then we got into a smattering of PSVR 2 games and stuff. And we got a question from Alex, but let's bounce back up to the top at the headline of the state of play, Logan, and that's Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Man, give me your impressions.
I'm assuming my face is still frozen on your end, so you can't see the disgusted look that I have right now where I'm just cringing, dude. I don't Rocksteady, why? Dude, okay, so a couple of weeks prior to the state of play, there was a screenshot that leaked of this game's, I guess it's like its main menu that looks very Call of Duty-esque, where you see your character, standing there looking cool, right? So you can look at the cosmetics, and he's got his gun. Oh, it's super cool. You got all your tabs up top that's like loadout, skill tree, season pass, store, the typical junk that we're used to seeing. And I'm just like, why? And then when you look closer, you see like 5 or 6 different currencies, and I'm like, why? This is supposed to be a single player game. Why does this look like Destiny? And then we saw the detailed look. This is literally Avengers. Like, this is Avengers, but with Suicide Squad DC stuff painted over it. And man, I gotta be honest, that screenshot that leaked had me worried. This detailed look just sucked all the wind out of my sails for this game. I will try it when it goes on like a bargain bin discount sort of thing, but I have no desire to play this game whatsoever, man. I'm burnt out on Destiny and games built like that, those looter shooter multiplayer type things, just because they're a dime a dozen these days, it seems like. And I'm not, I mean, the new Lightfall expansion came out for Destiny too, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm done. I'm done with these kind of games. And so knowing that this is what Suicide Squad is bums me out, because I would have loved to have seen Kevin Conroy's final performance as Batman, but I don't want to play this game because I'm just not interested at all in that gameplay. So I don't know, man. How do you feel about it?
I echo many of your thoughts there, Logan.
Yeah.
I'm going to approach it from the kind of Rocksteady and 8 years of time working on this game. And when they announced finally, after many years after the last Arkham game, that they were doing a Suicide Squad game, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
Suicide Squad, there's so many better IP in my opinion, and
and
I wasn't particularly thrilled.
we've all wanted a Superman game from them. We were
Yeah,
saying like if there's a studio that can do it, it's Rocksteady.
yeah. So that was disappointment number one. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, it's Rocksteady. Let's see what they can
Right.
do with the
Right.
IP. I'll give them a chance. It's Rocksteady.
Right.
So again, another couple of years goes by, and it's like, boy, where's this game? And I hope it's
Yeah.
shaping up all right. And then we get exactly what you said, that screenshot from a few weeks ago, and then this gameplay demonstration, and it's a big yikes from me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
X, like no, stay away. I'm getting complete Marvel's Avengers vibes from this,
Yeah.
100%. I remember being really hyped about that game pre-release, and then it just like
Mhm.
I still haven't played it. I'm not going to play it.
You're
So
better off. It's yeah. I'll just
yeah,
say that.
so it's almost the same. The gameplay looks so boring. Like you,
Mhm.
nothing against Crackdown, but it's just like so much. Like every character jumps in
Yes.
the air and then you shoot down with your gun. It's like that's the whole the gameplay loop. Like that's all they showed was the characters jumping around in the air and
Yeah.
shooting fools. And it's like where
We
okay,
have so many games like this already.
maybe it's a bad vertical slice. Maybe there's lots about
True.
the game that'll be really really cool.
I
I,
uh I did say on Twitter, like I was like, look, I would love for this game to come out and just make me eat my words and make me shut up because it's like
yeah.
actually really awesome. The way that they structured a lot of the stuff is actually really smart and really good. I would love for that to happen.
Hmm.
But just given what we got, that's not the impression I got.
Yeah, so it seems like it's a victim of kind of I don't know if I'm not comparing it to Anthem, but it's like
Hmm.
you're like 4 years too late on this trend. Like
Yeah.
this game should have come out 4 years ago, and maybe you'd be doing all right, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
who knows? So I'm just so disappointed that it took 8 years to get a game
Yeah.
from them, and it's this. Now, there again, we're still gonna hold out judgment until it comes out, but the
Yeah.
signs are not looking good. And
Yeah.
to me, in my opinion, and with my taste, this is one of the great like developer disappointments. Like I love Rocksteady.
Yeah.
They're so good, and to be anticipating like their next game so much, and then it to again, I'm holding out judgment, but to look like this, it's so disappointing. It's
Yeah.
massively disappointing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can't really overstate that enough how disappointed I am with what
Yeah.
we've seen so far from this game. So that's what
I
that's
was
all I've got.
I was talking with a few friends about it because they were just as disappointed as I was, and they were just like, "Why couldn't they do Superman, like a Superman game, like what Greg Miller over at Kind of Funny had brought up
Green
years
Lantern.
ago, or a Green Lantern even?" And it's like, don't get me wrong, I got real giddy when I saw Jon Stewart show up in Suicide Squad. I was like, it's my boy Jon Stewart, let's go. But you're a bad guy in this, so that kind of sucks. But they were reminding me of my friends were reminding me of this pitch that Greg Miller had for a Superman game, where you fight the same villain, you fight Brainiac, but he comes in and puts this like dome over Metropolis, and it like weakens Superman, right? And as you play through the game, you unlock Superman's abilities, and you get more powerful until like the last act of the game, you break the shell, and you are just playing as an unleashed, super powered Superman for the last act of the game. And I'm just like, that would be incredible. I would love to play that. And it's
Yeah.
just, why didn't we get that? Oh man, again, like I said, I hope this game comes out and makes me eat my words. But
Yeah.
what we saw did not impress me. I will say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I will say that.
that sums it up. That I don't have anything
Mhm,
else to add.
mhm, mhm.
Logan, anything else you want to call out? Resident Evil, Tituba, Baldur's Gate. Before we get into Alex's question, anything
I,
else?
I'm at a point where I'm ready to just go
Okay.
media blackout on Resident Evil 4 just because this game looks amazing. The mercenaries mode coming back. I spent so much time playing that on GameCube. Shout out to the GameCube because we got Resident Evil 4 first over there. Yeah, it looks good. I like that it seems like Lewis is more involved in the game this time around. And
Hmm.
so this is what I like about these remakes that are more like reimaginings, I think is a term you coined at one point, because that's what it feels like. And they're doing it in smart ways where they're keeping the core of the game the same. Like you can see Resident Evil 4 has still got that campy humor, which I love, but they're changing up certain things, like and in a way making the game better. That's like the thing with Dead Space Remake. There's no reason to go play the original anymore because the new one is really good, and the secret ending it makes me wonder what they're doing with the second one. So
Ooh, I'm curious.
it's pretty good. But yeah, I other than that, I mean, Resident Evil 4 was the only thing that really stood out to me during this. Baldur's Gate 3 looks pretty dope, but I don't think it's going to be my kind of game. And then I think there's going to be an audience for Tachia. I like the art design of it; it looks really cool.
Right.
But yeah, Resident Evil 4 was kind of my highlight. That's all I really wanted, or that's really the only thing that stood out to me.
Yeah. I agree. Not a whole lot there. Again, kind of a low key state of play. It seems like, and rumors are percolating a lot this past week or so that Sony is indeed keying up for a big PlayStation showcase, which would feature, of course, Spider-Man 2 and all the big games that we're hoping to see. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get into Alex's question because he has a question about PSVR 2. He says, which, by the way, if you support us over on Patreon, you can write into every episode of the podcast. So, Alex, thank you for writing in. What's the temperature check regarding PSVR 2 and the other Sony announcements after the latest state of play? Is PSVR 2 looking like a better value than you both thought at first? Also, was there anything else from the show that piqued your interest? Maybe even talk about the March 2023 free PS Plus games for the month. Sorry, I know that's more than one question. Maybe it'll be a jumpstart to a topic, which we're getting into right now, Alex. So again, thank you for writing in. So here's my thing. When the PSVR 2 launched, actually, I think a week or two before they launched, several outlets released their reviews for it, and I was reading through it, and I'm like, okay, the tech sounds really good. Like they were talking about, how good the visuals are of an upgrade from the original. So I think that price point of like, what is it, $650? Is that how much that PSVR 2 is?
$550 and then $600 for the Horizon bundle.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of then. That's the one I'd probably go for. I'm definitely a little more interested in it at this point just because of hearing how big of a jump the hardware is and how good it is. And hearing Horizon doing pretty good has me interested as well because I just really like Horizon. Even though I had a rocky go of Forbidden West, I still enjoyed my time with it. But I still feel like there's some stuff that needs to come out or do some things to really get me to buy in. At this point, I'm still just kind of like looking at it and observing and paying attention to the stuff. But I don't think my opinion's really changed beyond like, oh, okay, the tech is actually worth, the price. And so I'm kind of okay with that. But I did see, I think it was The Verge put it in their review, like they wish they would have made it to where it works with PC and you can use some of your Steam games on it. I'm like, oh, that would have been a cool touch. But I mean, maybe they'll add that later on down the road. You never know. My big concern is that wire that you have to connect the thing with, because in all the reviews I read, they were saying that they were getting tangled up with that thing a lot. And so that has me a little worried. But other than that, I mean, I'm definitely a little more interested, but not anywhere near close to like wanting to buy it, if that makes sense. But Micah, what about you?
Yeah, Alex, I think you're probably referring to, I can't remember which conversation we had, but we were kind of talking about it in a less than stellar light when it comes to like the games that they had. And, we're going to they're going to need to prove that a little bit. And I feel like pretty much right after that recording, they announced a ton more launch games. And I think they got the launch, like the number of games up to around 40 or 42, which is like number wise is pretty great, though there's not a ton of kind of system sellers, as it were. There's the Horizon game, and then I'm hearing really wonderful things about the Gran Turismo 7 implementation, especially, and of course Resident Evil Village has full implementation, which I don't think we knew at the time. So on the library front, it's getting a lot better, Alex, and I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and say now, Logan, I told you, but I told the patrons in the pre-show, my 40th birthday is right around the corner, and so I'm pretty sure my wife is going to get me a PSVR 2 for it.
Yep.
So I'm actually going to be able to get kind of hands-on with it probably here. I don't know if it'll be by next episode, but maybe the one after that. And I'm going to give some firsthand reports on it, and I'll be able to tell you exactly what I think about it. So it's kind of that thing where, if I wasn't turning 40, I wouldn't be getting this thing at all. Like, no way, no how, not in this climate right now. So it truly took like a once in a lifetime event for me to get this thing. So, that's where I'm at. Me, a huge PlayStation fan, I'm saying, I would have said no to PSVR 2, at least at launch. But just happenstance that, kind of the stars aligned, and it sounds like I'm going to be getting one. So yeah, I'm very excited. Since I sort of knew I was getting one, my focus, of course, has completely changed. I've been consuming way more coverage and looking at reviews for like random games and stuff, and like getting like pretty pumped about it. Like the technology leap does seem huge from PSVR 1, especially. That's pretty much the only VR headset I've used. I've worn and played a little bit on a buddy's. I think it's an HTC Vive. I played Star Wars Squadrons on his really beefy PC on a Vive.
Oh yeah,
and that was cool. But other than that, I don't have really much of VR experience. So I think the leap will be pretty palpable for me. And yeah, I'll let you know if I'm tripping over the wire or not. So yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Right on, man. Right on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. We don't really need to spend any time on the March 23 PS Plus games just because, I mean, there's a lot of write-ins. I will say this, though, because I just looked. For those of you looking to get into the Soulsborne genre, Code Vein is one of the free games, and that is one of the most accessible, if not the most accessible game in that genre, because you can have an AR partner with you throughout the entire game, and it makes the game a lot easier. So if you can withstand anime tropes, and I mean some mildly inappropriate anime tropes with how the women are designed, it's a really good game. That's a game that I got the platinum for. I grinded it out, like the multiplayer out, just to get it. It was a really good game. I really enjoyed it. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Of course, you got Battlefield 2042 and Minecraft Dungeons, which we talked about Minecraft earlier. Both of those are good pickups as well. But Micah, man, let's talk about the thing that I've been waiting to talk about, because
yeah. Yeah. So I had kind of a peek behind the curtain here. I had a handful of news items on here, and I texted Logan. So the previews dropped for Final Fantasy 16, whereas basically there was an embargo for previews, and all these outlets like IGN and Easy Allies and Skill Up and all these guys went to go. I think it was up to New York for this event where Yoshi P was there, Koji Fox, all these guys, and they're getting to talk to him and really kind of interview him and get hands on with the game. It really sounds like a great event. And so I texted Logan. I was like, hey, you just want to talk about Final Fantasy 16 instead of some of these other items here?
And I watched some of the previews. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, because this looks amazing. And Aaron L. White even wrote in and said, hey, with the new previews of Final Fantasy 16 out and reveal that it features full-on action combat designed by the guy who did Devil May Cry 5 to appeal to a generation that grew up used to direct input in first-person shooter in games like GTA, which he's paraphrasing Yoshi P, but trying to say close. How are you feeling about the direction they're taking? Let's get into it, man, because personally, as a Final Fantasy fan, right, and a Devil May Cry fan, those games are a lot of fun, and playing Hi-Fi Rush, which is a similar in design. After I watched a couple of those previews, I'm like, this game is so stinking dope. Like, there's so many things it's got going on that are just right up my alley. And personally, I'm going to say this. I love turn-based combat. I miss turn-based combat. Playing, 80 hours of Persona 5 Royal earlier this year had me like, I love this style of combat. However, I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of it moving forward, at least in Final Fantasy. And we kind of knew that from playing Final Fantasy 15, then going into the 7 remake, going into Intergrade, then going into Crisis Core. We kind of knew, okay, turn-based combat's pretty much done with in this series. But I got to say, from what I saw, again, I got to play it, but from what I saw, I like the look of it, man. I think it looks good. I like the action emphasis. I'm stoked to give it a go. I actually like the combat in Final Fantasy 15. I just kind of wish the story and the characters were better. The locations and everything was great, but I just didn't care much for the story of the characters. So seeing everything that we got, I was like, man, I'm all in. I don't need to see any more at this point. My goodness. But Michael, what about you?
Yeah, it all looks fantastic. I echo what you said, your thoughts there about kind of the action style versus turn based. I love a good turn based game, but of course I love a good action game too.
Yeah.
We're going to get into some of that sort of action versus turn based in just a moment, but a couple of key nuggets that we learned from this preview cycle. There's going to be 11 hours of cutscenes just in the main scenario quest.
Give it to me.
So yeah, very, Final Fantasy is known for the cutscenes. That's almost like your carrot, that's kind of
Yeah.
dangling out in front of you, sort of as your reward.
Yep.
The game is not an open world game. It's going to have these several large focused areas connected by a world map. So
Mm-hmm.
the way the Skill Up preview described it was, he was thinking sort of like Dragon Age Inquisition or God of War, perhaps God of War
Yeah.
2018. Um,
Which is
the
perfect.
there will be a performance mode, fidelity and performance mode. He Skill Up specifically, and I'm shouting out Skill Up because this guy, man, his coverage is one of the best that I saw. At least it was really, really good. Shout out to him.
Mm-hmm.
He asked specifically, he's like, is this on Luminous Engine, which was what 15 ran on? And they said no. He said, is it Unreal Engine, which Final Fantasy VII Remake ran on? And they said no. And they said, can you tell me what engine? And they basically didn't tell him what engine it was. So that was interesting note. Like, if for those that care about that kind of stuff,
it's their own secret sauce.
yeah, they might have a new proprietary thing going there.
Yeah.
And then the last thing was that is that the release date is rock solid and is not going to move. They said basically a meteor would have to fall in Japan for them to move the release date. But Logan, there's been this conversation, and again, shout out to Skill Up, because this is where this quote came from, and he started talking about kind of the shift from sort of an Eastern focus to a Western focus. And Yoshi P said this, and this is a long quote, but stay with me here. He said, Yoshi P, by the way, is the producer of Final Fantasy XVI. He's the producer and kind of the person that resurrected Final Fantasy XIV. Seems like the series is in good hands. But anyway, this is Yoshi P's words. Quote, one thing, this is Koji Fox, who is translating for Yoshi P. He's talking right now. He says, one thing he wants to get across is that when we create games, we don't go into them thinking we are creating JRPGs. We are just creating RPGs. The term JRPG is used by Western media rather than users and media in Japan. He goes on to say, this is going to depend on who you ask, but there was a time when this term first appeared 15 years ago, and for us as developers, the first time we heard it, it was like a discriminatory term, as though we were being made fun of for creating these games. And so for some developers, the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past. It wasn't a compliment to a lot of developers in Japan. We understand that recently JRPG has better connotations and it's being used as a positive, but we still remember that time when it was used as a negative. He still goes on further. I remember seeing something 15 years ago, which was basically a definition of what a JRPG was versus a Western RPG. And it's kind of like Final Fantasy VII, and it has this type of graphics, this length of story, and compartmentalizing what we are creating into a JRPG box, and taking offense to that because that's not how we're going into creating. We're going into create an RPG, but to be compartmentalized, that felt discriminatory. End quote. So that was fascinating to me. I've never heard anyone over in Japan talk about this in this way. So Logan, let me kick it to you. That was a mouthful from Yoshi P.
Yeah.
What do you think about, I guess, the Japanese maybe taking offense to this term, and how do you think it should be used going forward?
I mean, that was something I remember wondering, like, early on when I was gaming. Maybe it was the 360 era or even before that in the GameCube era. I was wondering, like, why is it called JRPG? Because we don't call games like this must have been during the 360 era. Because I was like, we don't call The Witcher, like, I don't know if it's made. No, it's made by a Polish developer, right?
Right.
We don't call that like PRPGs. We don't call games coming from like even the States like American RPG. We don't do that. We only do that with Japan. I always thought that was kind of weird, but I never really thought of it beyond that, because I'm like, okay, JRPG, again, kind of like what he was saying here. You put it in a box and you learn to expect this and this and this. But I think what's been cool to see about Final Fantasy in particular here in the last couple of years is them break out of that a little bit, kind of with a more action focused combat that I actually really enjoy. And so, yeah, I had never really, I'd wonder like why they're called, like why it's just Japan that gets kind of, I don't mean to use this term because it's kind of like inflammatory or, incisive. segregating that, Japan to one particular thing. I'm like, okay, this is your own style of RPGs, when it's like, they're probably not going out to think like, we're making a JRPG. Like, no, we're just going to make an RPG the way that we know how. And so, man, this kind of has, I don't know, it just makes me think a little bit like, dang, dude, that I never thought of it that way before. But now that I'm reading his words and considering, like, yeah, that would kind of suck, from their perspective there, to be like, okay, you're going to make a JRPG, and it's like, well, wait, what's a JRPG? It's like, well, it's this and that. Like, okay, well, I'm just trying to make good art, like, why
Yeah.
do we got to put it in a box like this? So I
It
don't know.
begs the question, sort of, well, how do you define a JRPG? If we're
Mm-hmm.
going to use JRPG in a, as just like a genre or like a categorization of games, and not in I don't think any of us were trying to be derogatory or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
like what, like the going back to Skill Up's video, he used the example of, Xenoblade Chronicles. It would be a JRPG, but Elden Ring is not. Well, they're both RPGs made by Japanese developers. Like,
Yeah.
what's the difference? Why is
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles labeled a JRPG and Elden Ring is not? And of
Yeah.
course, you can point to a few things like, well, maybe the anime art style, or and all these things that Yoshi P kind of called out. The Final Fantasy VII stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like, are we guilty of this a little bit?
Yeah.
Should we maybe just be rethinking it, and maybe, yeah, just it's just an RPG? I don't know. I thought that was
Yeah.
a pretty
Yeah.
fascinating and candid quote from Yoshi P.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, I like it. It makes me kind of think things a little bit differently, and I always like having my ideals challenged like this, or just different thoughts and stuff. And that was pretty interesting, man. I'm cool with just kind of calling them RPGs, to be honest with you. Like I said, I like the direction Final Fantasy 16 is going. I think it looks great. And I like just, I don't know. There seems to be. Now I'm thinking of this in the scope of the game, because the scope of the game is kind of like, you have these warring factions. They're resisting stuff that's kind of like coming at them. I kind of like. I don't know. I kind of like this. It seems like this might influence the game a little bit.
Yeah.
And
It,
so
it
I don't know.
really, you can tell that they have a great vision for where they want Final Fantasy to go, and I'm
Mhm.
really curious to see what this crew, basically this Final Fantasy 14 crew, is going to do with sort of a mainline single player game.
Yeah.
So yeah, very excited. Last detail I want to sort of talk about in relation to Final Fantasy is Yoshi P talked a little bit about the exclusivity window, and basically how PlayStation has a 6-month exclusivity window, but how essentially they're not. It's not coming to PC in 6 months, because that's just impossible. There's a lot of work, and he talked
Yeah.
about the optimization and stuff. And one thing I thought was interesting is the question was asked, like, well, why exclusivity in general? And one thing he said was, quote, this time there was a portion where we were developing together with Sony Interactive Entertainment engineers who know the hardware thoroughly down to the core, and we received generous support and optimization that we could not manage on our own, and so on. I thought that was an interesting little piece, because I don't think that is usually kind of brought up in the conversation. It's like, well, yeah, there's an exclusivity deal. Sony does a bunch of marketing for them. And that's kind of what they get. But in this case, I thought it was interesting that he revealed that Sony was indeed kind of helping them optimize, helping them polish, helping them get the game where it needs to be, since it's going to be sort
Mhm.
of a platform feature game.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there, Logan, about that? That was kind of interesting, I thought.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. It kind of has me wondering a couple of things, and this could just be reaching, but I because you hear these things floating around a lot about Sony buying Square Enix, and it kind of has me wondering even more, like, is Sony going to, because of their level of involvement with this game? I don't know. I think that remains to be seen, but it definitely, that's where it has me going. Like,
Yeah,
just in my train of thought is like,
yeah, I think that's a
okay,
fair that's a fair train of thought to have. I think it's lending more credence to, if anyone's going to buy Square, it's probably going to be Sony.
yeah.
That relationship seems to be, just good. Has been over the years.
I was gonna say,
Um,
like, even when you think back to the PlayStation One, for a while there, Square was releasing Final Fantasy games on Nintendo exclusively, until they got to making Final Fantasy VII, and Nintendo just would not budge on their hardware limitations in regards to the cartridge of the N64. And that's when they're like, look, we can't do this. PlayStation will allow us to do it. Let's just go over there. And that's when for really the longest time, Final Fantasy was known as a PlayStation only sort of game. Like if you wanted to play Final Fantasy, post Final Fantasy VII, you needed to have a PlayStation. It wasn't until Final Fantasy 13 that we saw that come to Xbox 360, and people didn't really care for it at the time. There's some who do enjoy it, right? I'm not going to ignore those people.
Sure.
I was one of them. That was my first Final Fantasy. I was like, this game is cool. And then I played the others. I'm like, oh, I see why people didn't like this other one now.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't really want Sony to buy Square Enix, but there's a part of my brain that's like, I would get it just because of that portion of history where they were working very closely together on the games. But I don't know, man. This, like I said, this has me wondering some things. Makes me wondering where it's going, because I mean, we still haven't seen Final Fantasy VII remake on Xbox. Like, where is that at? They got Crisis Core, which is weird.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know, man. It's weird to me. It has me wondering, like, are you guys? It's kind of like when you're in high school and you see these two people acting a little suspicious. Like, you guys dating? Like, you guys are acting a little close. What's going on here? Like, no, we're just
100%.
friends. And it's like, guys, come on.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all. I'm not rooting for it either. I mean, at this point in this era of conglomeration, I remember going when I was doing the Dear Listeners newsroom last year, and I did it for not really that long in hindsight, maybe 4 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but in that short period of time, like I reported on like tons of mergers and acquisitions. It was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so in this era, I'm kind of like, yeah, let's stop. We're good. Like, no one take over Ubisoft. Like, I don't want Microsoft taking Activision. I don't want Sony buying Squaresoft. I don't want any of that stuff. Squaresoft, lol. Square Enix.
Right. R.I.P.
I don't want any conglomeration. I want Ubisoft to be healthy and make good games. I want Square Enix to be healthy and make good games. And so that's I'm not rooting for this at all. But I mean, of any developer that is like, who do you think is going to go next? I guess maybe Ubisoft has a case, but it would be Square to Sony. That would be my guess, for real.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Time will tell. Either way, going back to the previews of Final Fantasy 16, it's got me hyped. Like, I'm so stinking hyped for this game. It looks so good. It
looks incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to the music composition by, I wrote his name down, Masayoshi Soken. He does the music on Final Fantasy 14. I'm not a fan of that game. But apparently it is out of this world. And the stuff that I've heard from the trailers of 16 and from these little preview clips sounds outstanding. So yeah, I'm as hyped as ever. And Logan, your number one draft pick in the Listener League is looking more and more validated. I know. Yeah.
I know. Pretty soon, Adam won't be able to say anything about me not picking Tears of the Kingdom. We know that game's going to be great.
I know, and I'm going to have Tears in my kingdom.
Yes, yes, you are. Yes, you are. They're going to be delicious. I will say this too: if those of you listening to this or watching this on YouTube have not checked out these previews yet, please go do so. Especially if you are. I got major Attack on Titan vibes from this game. Because like the summons are they're massive, and oh my gosh, dude, just go watch the previews. They are so stinking good. Like I said, I'm ready to go on media blackout for the game. I'm sold. I'll go pre-order the deluxe or whatever it is because it looks so good. But with that being said, I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. We got a lot of write-ins, so I think what we'll do, this will be the first time we do this because we got so many. We're gonna just touch on some of these and move over others, and then if they come again in the next episode, we'll cover them then. So just patrons again, want to say greatly appreciate just y'all coming out and getting these write-ins in. But let's start off with John Hannon here, who says, we know that more remakes and remasters are going to happen. There's just too much interest for them not to. But my question is it better for the original studio to be the ones doing this, or should another team get a crack at it? I'm mentally holding up Metroid Prime and Dead Space as examples of each and wondering if one approach is likely to consistently result in a better fresh take on a game, Bonus question: which developer would you like to see take a crack at remaking one of their earlier games? And of course, John is referencing Metroid Prime, Dead Space remake we got already, referencing Resident Evil 4 that's coming out later this year, the Bait and Kaitos remakes that are coming later this year as well. A lot of remakes, man, and I am all for it. But as far as the first question, is it better for the original studio to be the ones doing this or another team? My ideal goal, or my dream team, I guess, would be like you have core members from the original team with some new people to kind of bring some fresh ideas to it. Because, like I said with Dead Space Remake, I love some of the changes that they actually, I like all the changes that they made to Dead Space Remake, especially the stuff with the narrative and making that a little bit more cohesive. Like, it's really well done. Like, I thought that was awesome. You got Final Fantasy VII where it could go one way or it could go Kingdom Hearts territory real quick, and that means it just goes south. But what we got was really cool. It's definitely a reimagining, and I like that. And there was core people that worked on the original game that worked on this, and some new people, and that's what I like to see. I feel like my concern with having an original studio do it is, well, I'm thinking when I say original studio, I'm thinking like original studio and the same people who worked on the original game, is that they might get stuck in some of their creative decisions to where they won't budge and change some things, and that can be a detriment to certain things. And so I think having some core members with some new people to bring in some new ideas is the best way to go, because then you just get an all around better experience. Well, hopefully, best case scenario. But I think it just kind of helps balance things out. But Micah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. In the Metroid Prime case, I'm wondering, and I get what you're saying, John. Comparing Metroid and Dead Space, but I wonder truly, like, how many original developers from Prime worked on the remaster of
Yeah.
Metroid. I wonder. Um, I gotta think that it's better to have fresh blood in there. I just, there's
Yeah.
too many examples, whether it be Dead Space or the work that Blue Point does with Shadow of the
Mm.
Colossus and Demon
Yeah.
Souls, things like
Yeah.
that. The work that the Resident Evil 2 remake team did, that was a young team who
Man.
didn't take a chance, but they basically had to sell Capcom on it. I was like, hey, let us do this, please, because we have
Yeah.
a passion for this game.
Yeah.
And and they gave them the shot, and that team really executed and did a fantastic job. So in my mind, I'd rather have fresh blood kind of working on it. I guess the thought is, like, the original creators, they made the game, so why would you necessarily want to make it again? I'd just go on and do something new,
Yeah.
is my thought there. So yeah, I'm 100% in the let someone else
Yeah.
remake the game if it's worthy of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's go on to the second question here. Which developer would we like to see take a crack at remaking one of their earlier games? And I have one in mind, and I've been like just wishing for this for a while now, alongside Metroid Prime Remastered. But I don't think the original team even exists anymore. And I'm thinking of the Legacy of Kain series. I'm ready for that to get some sort
Yeah.
of remake. I remember playing that a ton at a friend's house on their original Xbox and just
Yeah.
really digging it. But I don't think that team even exists anymore.
Wasn't it? I think it was Crystal Dynamics that made Legacy of Kain, wasn't it?
Right. But I don't think, I guess what I
Not the
should
same
say, I don't
makeup.
think it's the same people made up of that. Yeah, the same
Right.
structure and stuff. I don't think that team specifically exists anymore. And I don't know,
Mhm.
maybe they do. I did find out when I was um, putting this together for this episode that Crystal Dynamics owns Legacy of Kain again. It kind of went off and was sold to Square Enix, and then it was sold to
Yeah.
like Embracer or something like that, and then it went back to Crystal Dynamics. So they own the rights to it again. So who knows if we'll see that? But I would love to see that because those games were just so stinking cool, man. It was.
Mhm.
I mean, I might be misremembering it, but I thought they were cool back in the day. I remember playing them a lot. But Micah,
Mhm.
what about you, man?
Yeah. I'm having a real hard time thinking about who originally, and people are going to be screaming when I say the game. I think it might have been a first party Sony game, but who originally created Tenchu, the original Tenchu game?
That was Team Ninja, wasn't it?
Ah, man, I'm gonna Google it real quick.
Because they went and made, what is that Soulsborne game? It's not Oni, Neo, or so I thought. No, that's FromSoft that did
Uh,
Tenchu.
Acquire, according to Google, it was developed by Acquire and Sony Interactive Entertainment. So I bet Sony was the publisher and Acquire was the.
Okay.
Although it says Activision on the cover of the game, I don't know what it is. Anyway, I would love them to make another crack at Tenchu. So that's
Yeah.
my answer. There again, when you talk about like the makeup of these teams, it's like, who even is there at the studio anymore, kind of there to remake the game, you know?
Oh.
Oftentimes they're just completely different teams. But yeah, Tenchu would be my answer.
Sorry, I'm looking at because Tenchu Z was the one I played a ton of, and that was made by FromSoft, so that's why I'm thinking of that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was
Okay.
a dope game. That was a really dope game. I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
that one a lot. But yeah, Tenchu's a great series. Oh, man, see, like I said, man, we're it's a good time to be alive as a gamer, man. Who knows what we're gonna get? Who knows what we're gonna get?
I know it.
Let's move on to John Harrison. Speaking of who knows what you're going to get when you're playing games, John Harrison writes in and says, "What do you do when your game loses your save/profile? When do you bail or bite the bullet and start over? Also, when has this happened to you? What is the most progress you have lost? Background: Marvel Snap lost all my data. My collector level was in the 2000s. As a follow-up, John realized, my account was saved in my Google account, not my Apple account. So he got his stuff back. He got his cards back. He's back to snapping and all that jazz and joining us in the Discord server. Dude, what do I do when my game loses my save? I cry a lot because that's so, especially in especially in any form of RPG, dude. It is just gut wrenching to realize the last 10 hours gone. And man, I think for me, if it's within the first couple of hours, I'm like, all right, fine, I'll play through it again, no big deal, I'll push through it. But if it's something where like anything past 10 hours, I would say probably even past 8 hours is just gone, I'm done with the game. Like I'm not going to go back to it. That's too much time to put back into it and kind of move through it again. It's just, it gets so boring. And as far as when has this happened to me, I can't really remember a recent time where this has happened, that my save was just
Well,
gone on
Logan,
something.
let me make up for that then, because I've got the ultimate
Okay.
lost save story. Back on the PlayStation 1, man, oh man, after Final Fantasy VII came out, you better know I was day one for Final Fantasy VIII.
Mm-hmm.
And major release, big deal. And the game was not as good as 7, but
Yeah.
I played that bad boy to the end, and I got to the point where you fight the boss, where the female lead, Renoa, I think that's how you pronounce her name, is like on the boss's chest or whatever. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember who the boss is, but it's at like the very end of the game, and my save file corrupted on the memory card. And
Oof.
like literally 99% through the game or something like that. Like, I kid you not, it was literally the ultimate back then for the biggest kind of longest game you can actually invest in, and you do that, or one of back then I lost 50, 60, 70 hours worth of stuff. And so yes, like, what do you do?
That's
I
rough.
didn't play that game ever again in my entire life. That's what I did. I was like, all right, I beat Final Fantasy VIII, and I'm moving on. I'm calling it.
Fair
I beat
enough.
it.
Fair enough.
So,
Sorry,
dude,
you said earlier Renoa. Did you mean Ultimecia?
um, is that the name of the villain?
Yeah, because I looked at it
Because
'cause I'm like, wait, Renoa's the name of the girl, like
right, and
the one with the.
at one point she's like on the villain, like almost like a crucifix kind of thing. Like, she's like on her chest or something like that. I remember,
I'm gonna have to look
if I'm
this up.
remembering correctly. It's one
I'm going to look this up.
It's like you have to fight the last boss like 18 times, and it's like one of the iterations or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's pretty ridiculous. Okay, I'll have to look it
Um,
up.
I might be. This is completely from memory, so I might be describing it incorrectly. But
Mhm.
people that have played 8, let me know. I was at that point in the game, and yeah, I lost my save file, so that
That's
sucked.
rough. I will say this, for those of you that are Googling the final boss of Final Fantasy VIII, don't Google it. Don't put that in your search history. There's one forum that is, Yeah, we won't say anything else like that. Let me ask you a question though, because since we're sharing about Final Fantasy VIII, what's worse, getting to the end of it and the save corrupting, or getting to the end and realizing because you didn't really properly prepare for it, you can't beat the game because the boss one shots you every time, and so in order for you to finish it, you have to basically replay the game again anyway.
No, it was. I remember that revelation kind of washing over me, and yeah, I did it wrong. I did the wrong thing where it was super hard at the end. I think that may have been why I
Yeah,
was even on that boss, because I was having a hard time beating it.
yeah,
So
because
yeah, no, I did not know that whatsoever. Playing the
yeah,
game the whole time, and I think I found out, after the fact. I'm like, oh, that's something
yeah.
would have been nice to know yesterday.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, Final Fantasy VIII has this really weird difficulty scaling thing where the more, like when you level up, the enemies level up as well. So you can get to a point in the game where the bosses are just really insanely hard. And that's what happened to me. I got all the way to the end of Final Fantasy VIII and then was just getting destroyed because I kept leveling up my characters. And I mean, that's the only thing I can remember in recent memory. But I played through the game again and didn't level any of my characters and did that thing where you like draw a lot of fire and then you equip it into a certain summon and then
Hmm.
you just destroy everything in one hit. That's what I did. And then I beat the game
Yeah.
in half the time too. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, I can't think of any games that I did that with in recent memory. But yeah. That's the only
Okay.
one thing I am curious though, dear listeners. You let us know your stories because I know that's happened. I mean, it's happened to everybody.
Oh yeah.
But oh my gosh, dude! I remember one time my wife was playing Dragon Age Inquisition. I deleted her like 30-hour save file
Oh
on
no.
accident once. That's still a source of contention within our marriage. She'll bring it up from time to time. She's like, "If I play this game, are you gonna delete my save?" I'm like, "No, my bad."
Savage.
So I mean, I don't blame her. I'd be upset too. That's a lot. That's a lot of time in that
Yeah,
game,
no joke.
especially with all the DLC. Good grief.
Yeah.
But I told her, I was like, look, I'll play through the intro stuff for you again and get you caught up to where you were. And she's like, okay, cool, that's fine. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into. We read Alex's. Let's read Dorian's here because we can blend in Calvary's right in here as well, real quick. So Dorian Taylor writes in. Here we go again with everyone's favorite topic: Sony and Call of Duty. Those are the two things that we love talking about on this podcast. What are your thoughts about Sony making the claim that they need Call of Duty to fund their games? Speaking of funding, I hope Metroid Prime Remastered gets on store shelves for purchase. Metroid needs the funding of us fans to show Nintendo that it deserves better. Let me stop right there. Calorie Zender wrote something in similar that says, thought I'd be able to pick up Metroid Prime Remastered on launch day, sold out everywhere, can't order online unless I want to pay $90 on eBay. Y'all, let me stop you right there, okay? As the resident Metroid Prime fan, I'm the Prime fan is what I am. Y'all, what are you doing calling yourselves Metroid fans when you hang on. It's been what 2-3 weeks since that Nintendo Direct that they announced Metroid Prime Remaster. You mean to tell me you did not download the game to your Switch an hour after the Direct when it was available, and you want to call yourself a Metroid fan? Guys, I'm just saying, you can't call yourself Metroid fans if you're not double. I'm being facetious, of course, for anyone not catching on, dude. I will say this though, y'all. This is going to sound bad when I say it. We should know better by now that when it comes to Nintendo and buying physical products from them, to not even bother because this crap happens all the time. The scalping stuff for Metroid Prime Remastered is flipping ridiculous. I've seen it and it's just nuts. So I'll agree that's really annoying and it's just dumb. But man, I thought we were all in agreement. I thought we were all buying it digital and then buying physical when we had the opportunity. When we're not
Double
doing that,
dipping.
double dipping. That's what I want to do. But no, I just sorry. I saw that in Calvary's right, and I'm like, I thought you got. Were we not buying it on digital when this came out? Is that not what the plan was? But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I know people would prefer to have physical, and that's fine. But I will
No,
just say, when it comes to Nintendo, you got to know better. Anytime Nintendo announces something and it's physical, don't even bother buying the physical edition. That's like the Tears of the Kingdom special editions. Same problem. It's just don't even bother with it. Just buy it digital, be done with it. Don't have to deal with the hassle. I will say this though: if I do find a copy of Metroid Prime Remastered physical, I'll pick it up and give it to a dear
well,
a
I
dear
was just
listener.
gonna say, Calvary. I saw today a couple of links from good old Wario 64. I think GameStop had it, and maybe one other outlet had it in physical. And so I think Nintendo is trying to get more copies out. I saw an update via Nintendo Life, which is a good Nintendo kind of fan site. Well, not fan site, just Nintendo focused website. But they have an official update from Nintendo. It says, "We will do everything we can to meet the strong demand for the product. Please continue to check with major retailers for availability. If Metroid Prime Remastered game sells out at various retail locations in the US, we will work to provide more units as soon as possible." So it seems like they're not trying to make it scarce necessarily. It just maybe they underestimated the initial demand.
Yeah, Nintendo over there, like, we thought people didn't care about Metroid anymore. Apparently, a lot of people want to play this. So I guess people like that Metroid trade. Again, Nintendo being just tone deaf, man. Metroid, just give it the respect it deserves.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, seriously, just buy Metroid Prime Remastered digital, and then later on down the road, buy the physical. Just what I'm doing. But like I said, though, straight up, if I find a copy of it and I have the funds to procure it, I'll pick up a copy of it, and if any, I'll give it to the patrons first. If any of the patrons like are still looking for a physical copy, I'll send it your way. But let's get to Dorian's question here. What are your thoughts about Sony making the claim that they need COD to fund their games? And I feel like we kind of touched on that a little bit last episode or the episode before about, Micah, you laid out kind of how God of War Ragnarok sold, and then in comparison to what Call of Duty sold, and it just decimated its numbers. I mean, the Call of Duty not only prints money, but they make the machine that prints the money and patents the parts and then prints the money. I mean, it's
still a flimsy argument, in my opinion. They don't need Call of Duty to fund their games. The profit that they made on Ragnarok alone is enough to fund several games. So no, that's a weird statement that they need Call of Duty to fund their other games. That's just another one of the many outlandish statements that both Sony and Microsoft have made this whole time that are just doing whatever they can to make themselves look bad so that the competition looks better and all this weird stuff. And so this is just another in this never-ending news cycle. It's a really, we've established it's a huge chunk of revenue for Sony. Yes. Would they miss it? Absolutely. Do they need it to fund their own games? No, I don't think so. That's ridiculous. Like, there again, like, God of War paid for itself. God of War Ragnarok paid for itself in 3 days. It paid for a huge, but so like everything else is just gravy, baby. So yeah, they can make, they can fund the next 2 or 3 Sony Santa Monica games with that. So like, yeah, I don't think they need it to fund their games. That's a ridiculous statement, I think.
Fair enough. Well, let's kind of round things out. Since we're kind of being silly here at the end of the show, or at least we're wanting to be silly, I guess. Porcho writes in, and I originally wasn't going to include this, but then I read it and was like, there's so many things to just be goofy about in this whole write, and I included it anyway. So Porcho, our dear patron from down under, he writes in and starts off with, I asked the Backlog boys this important question. Now it's your turn. First and foremost, Nate, Josh, you need to change your podcast to the Backlog Boys, okay? I don't know what it is about this name that I love so much. If it sounds like you're a breakdancing crew that breakdances in the alley behind McDonald's, or if you guys are kind of the old, there's the Warriors, but you're like the Walmart version of the Warriors, where you're like walking down the street snapping and you're about to get into a knife fight, which with the I don't know, what's the opposite version of Backlog? The library boys. I don't know. This is just hilarious. I love that phrasing. So Nate, Josh, please change your podcast to the Backlog Boys, if not just for one episode, just to make us happy. That's so great. Here's a hypothetical. It's a tough one. Now, Porcho, I don't know how y'all do things in Australia, but what we call these here in the States is a would you rather. Okay, so it's a would you rather, and that's what he's presenting with us today. The first choice is, I'm going to read this how we would read it. or I'll read it how Porcho wrote it, and then I'll just rephrase it again. First choice: after every 10 words, you make a very audible quacking sound. There's no way around it. Your brain just lets it out of your mouth. The second choice is if you find anything even slightly amusing, you outrageously laugh for 10 seconds like Tidus from Final Fantasy X. And he graciously included a link to the YouTube video. So this is essentially a would you rather, which is really just what kind of Tourette's would you like to have? I mean, would you rather quack like a duck after every 10 words, or would you rather laugh for 10 seconds like Tidus if you find anything slightly amusing? To which I would like to respond with, ha, 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 ha. It's obvious what my answer is going to be. I want to laugh like Tidus for 10 seconds. I mean, it's awkward and amazing all at the same time.
Like, I guess my question is, are you genuinely tickled, like, to laugh that hard, or are you just simply laughing because that's like your tick that you have to do?
Slightly amusing. So I mean, I would assume,
but I'm assuming he's making you think that, like, you think it's hilarious though enough to laugh like Tidus.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's the question. The quacking every 10 words thing, that's just, to me, that kind of comes off as like, like a tick. Like you just sort of have like a thing. Like people have, like, I don't know, like crutch words and stuff like that. Like you always go back to your crutch word. It's just kind of what you could maybe play it off a little bit better, but it still would be very, I mean, just like quack. Like you just let out a quack. That's kind of weird.
And like, I mean, I guess I could have gone with that because, like, I work with a guy who has, like, tics like that, and it's really nothing major. I mean, when you first meet him, it's kind of like, whoa, hey, what? But then you're like, oh wait, this is okay.
Yeah, I guess going back to the laughing thing, if I truly find it hilarious, then maybe that, because I mean, what do I care if people, I don't care what people think of me. I'm busting a gut, so I'm enjoying myself. So I kind of am leaning that one. But if I don't actually, if I think it's just slightly amusing, and I think people would get annoyed, so I'll go with the quacking duck sound every 10 words. But if you really get the enjoyment out of it, it's kind of hard to pass up on the outrageously laughing. So
because it's just so good, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think my final answer will be the quacking sound, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Soft. That's all I gotta say. You're just ha 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 ha. He's. Fortunately, I'm glad I left this in because that is a fun one. I'm gonna go watch that scene again. It's so bad. It's good. It's one of those things, man.
I need Sound of the Rain to make a track with that as like a what do you call it? What do you call it? I'm blanking on the name. A sample or something, just toss that in there, like, and loop it somehow and make it hit the beat. I need something Sound of the Rain.
Just like a ha 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 ha.
Whatever he can do with it, just he makes magic. So
he does make magic. Oh man, speaking of magic, thank you patrons for writing into the show, helping us create some magic here on the show. I'm gonna go over to Hogwarts and actually create some magic over there. But before we go do that, some things before we get into the ending of the show, the actual ending of the show itself. Ha ha! I can't. It's so good. Portrait, I'm so glad you wrote this in, dude. It's so funny. All right, Recos, Micah, what's something our dear listeners need to go check out?
When I first started co-hosting with you, Logan, I brought a bunch of different indie games, and I kind of went through that and got that out of my system. That little mini series. I'm going to go through another mini series coming up here in the next handful of episodes. And since we're doing news on the show now, and when I did Dear Listeners Newsroom, did a ton of research, and you really start seeing kind of a lot of the same names and the same outlets kind of rise to the top. You're like, oh, this is the source of this story. Like all these different outlets will report the news, but they all source back. You got to source your stuff. So you start seeing these outlets rise to the top. And so I want to highlight good video game journalism outlets, because we talk about video game journalism and how it sucks and how it's this, that, and the other. And while the outlets I'm going to talk about in the upcoming episodes, they might not be perfect or without blemish, but these are some good outlets that do good journalism, I think, and are outlets that you should go visit instead of the IGNs of the world. So, not that IGN's terrible, but anyway, the one I want to recommend this episode is, of course, we've talked about it a bunch. It's Video Games Chronicle. It's helmed by the editor in chief over there, is a guy named Andy Robinson. They're over in the UK. They do great work. They got great scoops. Jordan Midler over there does good reviews a lot of the times. And it's just a good outlet that I'm seeing that Andy has got the credentials. He's got the history with the industry. He knows it backwards and forwards, and he's got great insight. So yeah, go check out Video Games Chronicle. They're a good kind of, they get all the news without the political commentary that you get on Kotaku and Polygon and these sorts of sites. So like, here's the news. Boink, there it is. And like I said, they break stories a lot of times and have scoops and stuff. So yeah, Video Games Chronicle, VGC, go check them out.
I was just thinking, like, they actually just started a podcast recently, and yeah, there it is. It's a VGC, a Video Games Podcast. There it is, right there.
Yeah, brand new podcast. Yeah, in which they had a small scoop about Konami being at E3 and probably Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, actually. So yeah.
Just give it to me, man. Yeah, that's a great one. That's one of the few ones I actually frequent and read because, I mean, like Micah said, they just do a really good job over there. My Reco for this episode, and we mentioned him just a second ago, Sound of the Rain put out a new song called I Need a Little Help, which is themed after Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Despite what you may think about the movie, whether you liked it or you didn't like it so much, go check out the track because it's really good. I've played it a lot in both my class and just in my own personal time. Like when I'm playing games, I like to listen to music or play podcasts or something and kind of maximize my time. It's a pretty cool track. So definitely go check that out. Link will be in your show notes to that, to VGC, their podcast, their website, and things of that nature. But yeah, as always, dear listeners, thank you for checking out this episode of The Reformed Gamers. If you'd like to support us, get some extra content, Patreon is the place to do it. But if you can't support us financially, totally understand. Because, we're trying to save up money to buy Metroid Prime Remastered, and we might have to spend a little bit of extra money to do so, thanks to the scalpers. Quick note on that. Don't buy that game from scalpers, okay?
No.
Don't feed that.
Heck no.
I understand you want the physical. I understand that too because the insert is like reversible. That's really cool. And just having that on your shelf is nice. But if it gets to a point like you really want to play the game, don't pay the scalpers. Just buy it off the eShop. I know the eShop runs like the Internet Explorer on a Windows 95, but just get it off there and just enjoy it that way. Don't spend more than you need to. And like I said, if I can, patrons, pay attention to the Discord. If I can find a physical copy of it and I have the means to pick it up, I'll pick it up and send it to one of y'all just because, I mean, I said I was going to do it. So I was going to hook people up. By the way, that does mean, like, seriously, if I have the means to do it and I pick it up, I'm just going to send it to you is what I'm going to do. So keep an eye out for that. I'll post in the Discord, pay attention to that, and then we'll go from there. As far as like keeping up with us, interacting with the show, like supporting it non-financially, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can do so by subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the video, commenting on it, sharing it, do all that stuff. YouTube is actually going to implement a feature here pretty soon with their shorts where you can actually do duets like you can on TikTok. So if you find a section of the show that you really like and you want to duet it on YouTube, if you have a YouTube account and you have a channel, feel free to do that as well. That helps kind of get the show out there as well. You can visit our website, follow us on Twitter, join the Discord. All that stuff will be in your show notes, and we would love to connect with you, especially if you're into Marvel Snap. There's a whole channel about it. There's a whole podcast about it. Links to everything will be in your show notes. But Micah, dude, it's a good time to be a gamer, man. I can't help but feel blessed right now. You know what I mean? It's just,
dude, we're eating good. I love to say it, eating good. And we got the games are coming out, man. Talking about the fantasy league, we got the games rolling in. Get those scores. It's a fun time.
It's just a good time, man. It's a good time. It's just funny because we were looking at Matt Edwards' write-in, and I didn't know how to fit this in, but I mean, it just fits in. We just. Fellowship, gaming fellowship through gaming is just important. It's encouraging, uplifting, some fun there too. And we need to just look at our priorities, trust God through good and challenging times, despite what's going on. But man, every day when I come home, I'm grateful I can spend time with my wife, I'm grateful that I can just kind of relax with some games, even if it's Marvel Snap and I go on a losing streak. It's a good time, man. I love being able to connect with people through this podcast, both in the Discord and here. And it's a good time, man. It's a great time to be alive. Great time
Amen.
to be alive. And God's good, man. God is good. Well,
Amen.
anyway, dear listeners, thank you for checking out this episode. We will see you next time. So be a deer, keep it locked here, and we'll see you in the next episode.